Hi, I'm Liliana Zhiskovsky, and I'm on a mission to close the gap in healthcare that has cost millions of people their health and healthcare providers billions of dollars. Lots of money is spent on developing revolutionary medications, but the drugs are only effective when taken correctly. 60% of medications are not consumed as prescribed to be effective. 25% of people don't fill their prescriptions at all, and less than half of the ones that do fail to take their medication on schedule. The failure is wasting lots of money and creating devastating health outcomes for individuals and public health programs. The primary source of the failure lies in the process. The current procedure, handing out pills and hoping for the best, has not been legitimately questioned or altered in 100 years, and it's obviously not working. It's hard for me to understand being satisfied with spending so much money developing medications and not having any data to make sure that they're actually being used correctly and helping people. The only data that circles back to doctors' offices and pharmacy companies and other healthcare professionals comes from prescription refills, patient feedback, or readmission to hospitals. The location, security, and proper use of the pills is completely undetermined once they leave the pharmacy. This lack of knowledge is detrimental to hospitals and patients alike. The current state of the system for medication management is practically unacceptable. I was personally inspired to address this gap in the healthcare system when a family member was hospitalized after not taking prescription medications on schedule. What started out as a project in the 6th grade has evolved into a personal mission and an inexpensive, easy-to-use prototype that I hope will fill the medication management gap by providing timely, contextual information to the patient as well as healthcare providers. There's no reason in the world for this not to be addressed. Changing the process does not have to be expensive or difficult. It just requires small changes and commitment. I imagine a world where medications are distributed with the ability to track and communicate usage automatically. Notifications reminding you to take your pills would be as casual and natural as a text, but they would change the lives of many people depending on their medications. I believe that simple changes to this broken system can change many lives for the better by 2030. Such an important problem deserves attention from those with power. The missing information is really important to doctors, health organizations, and patients. And I think that after new processes are created and the gap is filled, we'll look back and wonder why we never did anything sooner. I hope decision makers at all points in the global healthcare system will adopt changes that bridge this gap. It is my great pleasure to introduce the next speakers, and I and many other young innovators and scientists have been inspired by Megan Smith's work and championed by programs sponsored by the Office of Science and Technology Policy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Chief Technology Officer of the United States, Megan Smith.
Please welcome Megan Smith, Cori Zarek, Deputy U.S. Chief Technology Officer at the White House, and Asha Curran, Chief Innovation Officer and Director of the Belfer Center for Innovation and Social Impact at 92Y.
Hi all. Are we having fun? All right, I'm thrilled to be here with you both. We don't have that much time, so we'll dive right in. So you guys started working together kind of toward the end of the current administration.
Yeah, Cori was already there.
Cori was already there, yes, and you came. So what did you want to accomplish? What were your big dreams then? What do you feel like has happened in the past kind of whirlwind 2 years? And what do you think are the challenges that are going to have to be tackled by the next administration?
Yeah, the president started the office that we're in, the Chief Technology Officer, with this administration. And it's embedded, as Lily was talking about, in the Office of Science and Technology Policy with the President's Science Advisor, Dr. Holdren, who actually just celebrated he's the longest serving science advisor since Vannevar Bush with Franklin Roosevelt. And they published about 100 of the major things that the president has gotten done. We really have a science and tech fast forward president and President Obama, just extraordinary things. And one of his commitments was really about sort of using these new methods, data, innovation, technology, collaboration, the kinds of things that we're talking about here at the Social Good Summit, to really solve some of our greatest challenges, and in our case, help the president and his team harness the power of data, innovation, technology on behalf of the American people and the world.
In the world.
Yeah, and so we're working on lots of different pieces of that. There's really 3 buckets that we kind of cluster our work in. One has to do with actually policy itself. A lot of times we think of tech and innovation as implementation. And so we don't necessarily have those people in the room when we're deciding the architecture or planning things, especially in the government and nonprofit sector. That's changing, but it hasn't been the way. Anne-Marie Slaughter was recent on stage talking about triathletes. Can we get the tech folks to do nonprofit, government, and tech, all of us really to flow through? So we use all the tools of the universe. And so in the policy area, we call it TQ, like IQ and EQ. And it could be tech policy like encryption or net neutrality, or that we just open the federal open source policies, or it could be world child poverty. But just like having a surgeon general in the room, they're not operating or doing medicine when they're there doing policy work, but with that knowledge set, just like the lawyers and economists. So that's a big shift that we now have in the US government emerging and having these technical people. The second and third bucket are really about modernizing and capacity building. Modernizing the US government. We have Americans who've built Amazon and Facebook and Google and Twitter, and people all over the world are in their countries, and they need to have a tour of duty in government with great civil servants, work together and really deliver products. You shouldn't wait 9 months to get a replacement green card if you can get a Visa card in 2 days. So really that kind of work, Presidential Innovation Fellows, United States Digital Service, lots of the work that Cori's been doing with Open Government Partnership and others, digital services and data science. And the last one is capacity to build the American people. So things like computer science for all. Coding is really a new basic. 9 out of 10 parents in the United States want coding taught at school. How do we get that done on behalf of the US? And many countries are already starting to do that. I brought a Raspberry Pi. Just, this board is the board from your cell phone. It costs, $5, $6, $4. Second graders in England are starting to program this as part of school. We want everybody to have creative confidence that comes with playing around with this stuff so that we can build solutions for things like the SDGs.
So we'll get to some of the individual kind of work that you've been doing. But first, this summit is about the nexus of technology and global development and innovation. And we know that there's a big gap, right, between people in the social sector and people in Silicon Valley, or with those skill sets or those networks working together. And what's the answer? What's going to bring them together?
Last time I was in this building, Malala Yousafzai was being interviewed with her father, with Christine Amanpour, and I was with her recently, and she was saying, why is the tech sector and the NGO sector and government, why are people so separated? And it's a great insight from a teenager. It's unnecessary, and we need to change that. And it's just how we got moving, and we can change that. It's exciting to see that, and the president is really pushing hard for us to do that within the US government and really encourage people to do that. Many of the people who've come out on stage are talking about that. We're going to be hearing from Black Lives Matter team and others in just a minute. And if you think about the justice goal and the sustainable development goals, what are we doing in the United States? The part that we can bring to the table with our colleagues is data science. We need Spock and Scotty and Uhura and like the whole crew. So what can we do with sharing of data? And the way that we approach that is, there's usually someone in the world or people in the world who have figured out the answer, or they have a solution in progress. Can we, just like the venture capitalists are scouting for great entrepreneurs, can we venture catalyze the greatest solutions, the greatest solution makers? And so in this case, we found a Miami-Dade had closed a prison, and they were dropping the prison population by using data science and helping those with mental health disorder, substance abuse disorders, in terms of prison numbers, and really changing how they were helping and treating people, Camden, New Jersey, others. And then in the case of more transparency in policing, we noticed that Dallas and LA were opening their data sets to the public, just like all the open data work Cori and others lead. So use of force data, officer-involved shooting. How can we get a better conversation going with transparency and also data sets that might tell us things the way that we have weather or mapping on our phones? What kind of governmental data state, local, federal, can we get into together as a cross-collaborative team to understand? So that's data-driven justice. We have 80 million Americans covered by that in the last 6 months, jurisdictions who signed up to really collaborate in biweekly learning calls and really accelerate those kinds of solutions we've seen in Miami and other places in their hometowns. And Police Data Initiative, which is an open transparency play with open data and collaboration across cities.
And that's really your game, right? The open data, open
It is.
transparency, right?
Yeah.
Open government. Do you want to talk a little bit about why that's important, and
Sure.
also sort of how we can engage everybody, regardless of
Yeah.
what they do or what walk of life they're in, how they can
Absolutely.
play a part in that?
So open government is nothing new. We've had access to government information as long as we've had government. But President Obama has really captured the imagination of those of us who love open government, and there are actually a lot of us, to come together and work more collaboratively with one another inside and outside of government to advance these goals. We're talking about general transparency so that we can actually see what's happening in our communities and use data from policing statistics to help us build trust. We're talking about engagement. Making sure that we have all of our Americans at the table when we're working together to solve some of our hardest problems. Government doesn't have all the answers. President Obama says that all the time, and he's right. We need to hear from everyone from all sectors, from academia and the general public and industry and nonprofits. We need to come together and think about how we together can better address the governance issues that face us. So that's something we've been spending a lot of time on in this administration, and part of that work has been led through the Global Open Government Partnership, which actually this week is celebrating its 5th anniversary here at the UN. The Open Government Partnership was started by President Obama and 7 other world leaders 5 years ago. What started with 8 countries has now grown to 70. And in these 70 countries, we have the governments and hundreds of civil society organizations pushing each other to be more transparent, to provide better services for their citizens, to engage their citizens in decision making, and to hold one another accountable for the work that they're doing.
And Cori leads the National Action Plan for the United States. So each of those countries has a National Action Plan. Every 2 years they publish. We have 40 commitments. So for example, President Obama has led us to open nearly 200,000 data sets. We know about weather and we know about mapping and that, but now, Census, for example, has opened a software developer kit, like you were gonna write an app for your phone for cities. And they're hosting that. They have opportunity.census.gov, which is a place where you can get HUD and other kinds of data, so that if you're moving to a certain location, really popular applications like Redfin or Zillow or others are now hosting features from these data sets from Housing and Urban Development, Department of Labor. We have this information in all of our governments. Why don't we release it and let the innovation communities really take it and make amazing apps like the one we just saw on stage, or marketers or communicators, or who would put it together to really solve the things they're passionate about.
And give us an example. Have you seen that done? What's an example of someone who's taken that information and created something great out of it?
There's so many great ones.
And then how do you take that solution and scale it, I guess is the next question.
I think extractive industries is a good example. So I don't know if you want to talk about
Sure.
that.
So we have amazing resources in our government lands. We sit on oil reserves, gas reserves, coal.
Coal and oil.
We have great forests full of timber, and there are companies that want to pay a lot of money for this, which is a good thing because it brings dollars into our communities to help us improve life where we are. Natural resources transparency, however, is so incredibly important because we need to be able to see where this money is coming in from and that it goes where it's supposed to. In some countries around the world, we have real serious anti-corruption problems where we're really trying to ensure that money is tracked and the public has the visibility to hold their officials accountable for where it goes. So with the natural resources transparency work, the US team took the reporting that's required of this type of work, lengthy PDF document, we're all familiar with those.
I call them the PDF ghetto.
And kind of opened that up and just turned it on its head and created this beautiful interactive site where anyone can go and see right in your neighborhood, in your county, what resources are being extracted and how much money is your county getting from companies for that? Where's that money going? You can engage with that information in a way that would never have been possible had we still had just those closed PDF reports.
So they continue to publish in that format, but now there's this live tool, it's open source. And we're seeing already other governments and other constituents starting to take the open source and add value to that and launch in their region. So we could see that as the new normal, that we would publish live data tools for us to interact, as well as data sets with APIs or sort of a way to plug in for any applications that are popular, whether it's college information on payments and that side of things, or whether it's housing, poverty, all these pieces. So it's great to have the global partnership on data, and now we can bring tech folks into that and release that and really solve a lot of problems together and really engage young people, people of all ages, but it was so great to see Lily. Yeah, so the things that the young people can do, it also can make school less boring. way more interesting, and they can come in and join us on solving the SDGs, which are such a great comprehensive list of all the problems that we really face.
So we talked about the importance of getting everybody from civil society and governments and tech and everybody to the table to try to solve some of these big problems. It has to be said that you're a groundbreaker in terms of the work that you've done both at Google and at the White House, and getting the gender and ethnic diversity to the table has to be just as important, right, as getting the sector diversity.
Very much so.
So what's being done to ensure that in the pipeline, especially since you mentioned young people?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I think the work that we do, even though it lives in the world of data and tech and innovation, new methods, journey maps, design thinking, user interface, and that thing, it's really about unlocking talent. How do we have the talent that's passionate about whatever topic, have all of the tools of the universe, creative competence and access to resources to solve them, hopefully for a lot less, we can move faster if we almost venture catalyze people. And so it's not right that we're not playing with the whole team on the field, and that's happening all over the world. It's a real waste of talent. And so the president's been really pushing us on what we can do in the United States. I would say that one thing that's been so great for me is President Obama's team is the most diverse team I've ever worked on. It's gender diverse, racially diverse, geodiverse, frame of mind, different skill sets. And we know, actually, that the best teams are more diverse. They may be more uncomfortable in some ways because you may not be as familiar with everybody's culture, but it's proven the revenue is better, the product is better. So a lot of people think this is a charity agenda. This is a prosperity agenda. And the more we can sort of activate folks. So one of the fun projects we were talking about backstage is not only the unconscious bias and those things, but the history work. Lifting the true history that all of us have always been part of innovating for all of time. I mean, I'm so excited for the Hidden Figures film. This is a story that will be out around the holidays, the winter holidays, of the African-American women who worked on the space race in the beginning. Most people don't know that a black woman, born 2 years before women got the vote, calculated the trajectories for Alan Shepard, first American in space, John Glenn, first American around, and the Apollo mission. And we need to help our colleagues in Hollywood really get to the truth. As Churchill said, the further back you can look, the further forward you will see. And as we see, the way to get kids into tech is know that people like you did it. And so these stories are very important because you were talking about some of the people you have on your wall. Doing it yourself, the confidence you get from playing around with this stuff. Understanding what it's for, and nothing better than the SDGs to motivate us, right? And having some encouragement. And it's in the collaboration of all of us and what we each would be passionate about. There's 7 billion plus of us. If we can activate that talent and get us collaborating in the way that people deserve, we can really get a lot of the things we need to get done.
Excellent. We're 30 seconds, so Cori, just throw out a piece of advice to people who want to engage.
Oh, find us. We are looking for you.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about open government today and later this week, and the biggest piece of open government in my mind is engagement. And we have amazing teams throughout the US government doing interesting, fun, exciting work, and we're always looking for our teammates who may not work for government, but who have just as much to contribute. So find us. If there's something you're passionate about, find out who's working on it, and we want you. So get engaged, get involved.
Yeah, and the Solution Summit will be hosted later this week, which is where the UN actually posted a website a month ago saying who has solutions in progress for all these hundreds and hundreds of submissions from around the world. And so I think there's just shy of a dozen entrepreneurs who will be here with their 3-4 minute lightning talks, and we'll try to venture catalyze them with astonishing things, including somebody who is working on whales being able to speak with us.
And those are voices that don't always get heard, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much.